Well, you guys seem to really like the last video I put out on the history of iconic skateboarding spots, and you liked it so much in fact that I decided to bless you guys with a second upload this week. That's right, you are not hallucinating. This is a Wednesday upload and I am still putting up another video this Saturday, as usual. So I hope you enjoy this double upload week. In the last video, I told you guys about some of the most popular skate spots throughout skateboarding history, and if you haven't already seen that video for some reason, make sure to watch it first. But obviously I couldn't cover it all in just one video, so I'm thinking about making this into a sort of a series where I learn myself and teach you along the way about some of the most popular skate spots throughout skateboarding history. So if you'd like to see me make this into a series, let me know in the comments down below, and while you're down there, don't forget to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. So without taking up any more time, let's jump right into this video. The Brooklyn Banks. Believe it or not, there was once a time when even New York City didn't have a dedicated skate parks for skaters to skate at. However, skateboarders persisted like we always have and found a spot underneath a Brooklyn bridge that we now call Brooklyn Banks. And ever since it was discovered by skaters in the early 80s to 90s, the Brooklyn Banks has served as one of New York's most iconic and popular spots, not only for skateboarders, but also for BMX and scooter kids. And has been featured in countless video parts, skateboarding magazines, and is even in video games such as Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Tony Hawk Underground, and was more recently featured in Session. And there's tons of things to skate at the Brooklyn Banks, including the two banks, the small one and the big one, multiple rails, ledges, stair sets, and pillars that are all scattered throughout the space. There have been multiple attempts to shut skaters out of this spot, but thus far all of them have failed. And if you're familiar with the Brooklyn Banks, you've also probably heard of Steve Rodriguez. Ever since 2004, when the city of New York threatened to convert the space into a green park, he's been there fighting to keep it open. And a handful of years later, the New York City Department of Transportation had to do some work on a bridge above the skate spot, which meant shutting it down for a few years. And once again, Steve fought to keep it open. And while his attempt ultimately did fail because, you know, a bridge needing repair versus leaving a skate spot open isn't really an easily won battle against the biggest city in America, he did end up making sure the spot wouldn't be torn down after construction was complete, which is one of the biggest fears among the skate community. However, the fight to keep Brooklyn Banks alive isn't quite over yet. As if 2020 couldn't get any worse, the spot is once again under fire. And even though it's been closed for 5 years for remodeling, it seems that wasn't quite enough. And recently some images on Instagram are posted showing that some of the bricks were taken out of New York's most iconic skate spot. And as of May 10th, an online petition was created to try to save the banks. Today, it stands with 34,000 signatures, just barely under their goal of 35,000. So I urge all of you, yes, all of you, to finish watching the video first, and after you're done, go and sign a petition to save the Brooklyn Banks. Don't worry, I'll remind you once again at the end of the video. MACBA. Taking us across the globe, we have MACBA, one of the best skateboarding spots in the world according to Skate Pro magazine. Now, if you're like me and you aren't from Spain, you probably just call a spot MACBA, but the official name is Museum de Art Contemporánea de Barcelona. I'm not a professional translator, but I do believe this translates to the Museum of Contemporary Art of Barcelona. And yes, it is literally a museum, but everyone that skates just calls the spot MACBA. It's a spot skaters found, and because of the videos that they recorded in the late 90s and early 200s, the community turned it into a famous spot. And these weren't just some random videos posted on YouTube. These were some of the most watched skateboarding videos back in the day. Some of them including the DC video, Baker 3, Zero Skateboards, Misled Youth, and so many more. I could just sit here all day listing them. But you might wonder, what's so great about MACBA? I mean, it just looks like the 3 block and maybe a few stairs. Well, it's in what some people call the capital city of skateboarding. It's not only the perfect spot to grab your board and chill for the day while being surrounded by skaters, art, and bars if you're of legal drinking age, of course. There's so many features there and other spots nearby that you'll never run out of ideas for tricks or new lines. Way back when the spot was still getting popular, it used to be known for the big 4-block out back. But during the summer of 2009, they redesigned it and turned it into a smaller 3-block. This obviously hasn't stopped anybody from skating it, and it is still one of the most popular spots in the city, although you don't see it in as many skateboarding parts anymore. And today, it's mostly known for the larger ledges out front and the ledge to street gap. Vulcan actually held a skate competition there a year ago where they redesigned the 4-block, although it was only temporarily done. Back in 2019, the local government released plans to have the spot skate stopped, but a local skater that started an Instagram page for MACBA called MACBA Life put out this photo as a way to bring awareness to skaters on how they could help avoid the spot being shut down entirely. Apparently, there was a lot of complaints about noise at night being brought up by locals, so the government had to act. Thankfully though, it seems like skaters met the government's demands, and thanks to the power of the skateboarding community, the spot is still skated today. 3rd and Army. 3rd and Army is arguably the most famous skate spot in San Francisco. The funny thing is, the spot isn't even located at 3rd and Army. It's actually a block away on a cross street of Cesar Chavez Boulevard and Indiana Street. This industrial patch of concrete was built in 1998 as a part of San Francisco's Bay Conservation and Development Commission's Bayview Gateway Beautification Project. Try saying that 5 times fast. According to Grind TV, it was never actually intended to be used for skating, just like most other things in this video. And the scenic backdrop is one of the reasons this place got so popular in the first place. It's located on a body of water known as Islay's Creek, which is derived from the Native American word Islay, which means wild cherry. In the early 90s, Mike Carl and Rob Welsh made this plaza a destination for skaters across the globe, who often brought their own features to combine with the park's already existing ledges, benches, and gaps. Thankfully, no one has tried to take the spot down throughout the years, although it has suffered some natural challenges, if you can call it that. The first is about the water that surrounds the park. It's just toxic. Like, if you send your board signed by the skate god Aaron Cairo into it, you should just let it go, man. It's gone. It's said that the park is built on top of a sewer. A visiting pro once threw a complete skateboard into the creek and said that anyone who gets in can keep it. Apparently, a local tried to receive it, and in the process, some of the creek water got into an open wound on his arm, and it required hospitalization. A second challenge that the park has faced is the homeless people that have built up an encampment and invade on the lower level of 3rd and Army. They actually set up tents, a cooking area, and even a makeshift marketplace. Thankfully for their skaters though, the police came along and got rid of them, although there occasionally are stragglers to this day. Southbank Skate Space. Well, it may be official on Google Maps, it is still technically an unofficial skateboarding venue that was discovered in the 1970s. This park features many ledges, banks, pillars, and even a set of stairs. The same way Brooklyn Banks was the home of skateboarding for New York, Southbank is the home of skateboarding for London. What's really cool about the space is how it grew organically into what it looks like today. It started out as an unused space that skateboarders quickly adopted. However, BMXers, inline skaters, graffiti artists, musicians, and videographers came along and left a footmark on the place too. Most obviously, you can see graffiti that lines the walls of the spot, and it adds a really cool backdrop in many of the skate videos this place has produced. Much like other spots I've mentioned on this list, the anti-skaters have tried to shut it down, but thankfully, a group known as Long Live Southbank, or more commonly known as LLSB, came along and successfully campaigned against the redevelopment of the spot. About a year after forming on September 2014, signed a Section 106 agreement with the Southbank Center, which guaranteed skaters a spot for the long-term future. The hard work of LLSB continues to this day. Back in June of 2017, they launched an £800,000 crowdfunding campaign aimed at raising funds to restore the skate space. The vibrant development is supposed to include a new space for skateboarding, along with a place for children and young people to hang out. This isn't going to wipe out any of the existing features, but instead expand upon the existing skate space with improvements to lighting, as well as restoration of the original 1960s banks and concrete paving. Black Hubba. There are only a few skate spots in New York that compete with the popularity of Brooklyn Banks, and one of the main ones is the Black Hubba skate spot. It's a series of, you guessed it, black hubbas that surround a fountain in the middle. And although it may be just as recognizable for some of you as the other spots on this list, it is a lot less accessible. Black Hubba stands in the middle of the financial district, which is also where the city hall is. This means this area is heavily patrolled by the anti-skateboarding police, aka the regular police, the NYPD. There's actually a no skateboarding sign that was posted up by the Parks Department, and although it's rumored that for the most part, cops will leave you alone, the chances of you getting a ticket are pretty high. And it's not extremely clear who discovered Black Hubba first, but it seems like the filmmaker R.B. Malley was a part of the crew to skate it first. He said that they regularly passed by it in the 90s while it was under construction, while they were on their way to the Brooklyn Banks. And one day they saw construction stop. So him, Van England, and Giovanni Retta hopped the fence, and then Anthony England front side tail slid into fakied it. From there on, he says, they stopped hitting up the banks and instead always tried to skate the Black Hubba. But as always, the police retaliated against this spot's growing popularity. So they worked hard to install skate stoppers to bring this popular spot to an end. According to Steve Rodriguez, the skate stoppers were once removed by BMXers, although I definitely wonder if he did it himself under a cloak of darkness. Pretty much ever since Black Hubba was built, it has been skated and has been featured in many skateboarding videos. But in my opinion, one of the coolest ones was done in Zarrett Bassett's part in the skate video State of Mind, which was released in 2009. He did a switch tray flip to lip slide, which was so clean, it could be in an OxyClean commercial. Thank you everyone that made it this far into this video, and before you leave, I've got to remind you to sign the petition to save the Brooklyn banks. This spot means a lot to the skateboarding community, and I wanted to use my reach to help get awareness. So make sure to click on the first link in the description and sign a petition, and make sure to tell everyone you know about it and have them sign it as well. The more signatures we have, the better. Anyway, that's all I have for you today, and if you're new, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you again on Saturday.